Welcome back to Free for All Friday on Focal Point. AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Talk about anything has been in the news this past week. Free for All Friday. Utah's governor going to reopen their 5 national parks. They're just going to do it. He just decided they're going to do it. They're going to use state resources to do it. They made some kind of a deal with the U.S. Department of the Interior, so they're not slowing down. National parks going to be reopened in Utah. You know, it's amazing out there in the West how much of the land, the space, the ground is owned by the federal government. In Idaho, for instance, my home state, 63% of the state of Idaho is owned by the federal government. So you almost can't sneeze without getting permission from a bureaucrat in some cubicle in Washington, D.C. You know, so and what we're seeing in this shutdown, just kind of the enormous intrusion of the federal government into all aspects of life. I've got a story in the stack somewhere about the number of private businesses that are kind of shut down because the Small Business Administration is closed down and can't give government loans. Well, why are we depending on the government for loans? That's what banks are for. That's what commercial lending institutions are for. They shouldn't be hamstrung from being able to get financing if they got a solid going business. Why should the fact that some federal government office is closed down in D.C. stop them in their tracks when they even had a lender, a bank that was willing to lend them money, and they can't do anything until they get some kind of sign-off from the Small Business Administration. And other businesses are shut down because they don't have food inspectors or something like that. Well, why are we so dependent on the federal government to conduct business? It just shows how accustomed we've gotten to being serfs in our own country. All right, let's go to the phones. Let's go to Todd, Waco, Texas. Todd, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Hey, brother. I'm so blessed by you. Just the Jesus in your heart is so amazing, and I listen to you daily, and I'm just so glad there's someone like you that is giving the word to God's people.
Well, thank you, Todd, very much. I appreciate that very, very much.
The book of Esther, I love it so much, and I think you really hit the nail on the head. You know, we as Christians need to look around and realize that God's will is going to be done. It's going to happen. It's not a dream. It's not a hope. It's not some wispy sort of thing. His will happen. Now, will we be a part of it or not? You know, the same question that Esther had. Will we fast and pray and find out what it is that is our part in God's will for now or not? I think that's a question that every Christian needs to ask themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you brought that out very nicely. And it's a question that I ask myself too. I've currently been on a fast for a very long time, more than a month, and just seeking the Lord to know what will I do next, and He's going to tell me,
mm-hmm.
and I'm going to know.
Yeah.
And I believe that's true for every other Christian who seeks Him.
Yeah. All right, well, listen, that's a great call, Todd. I really appreciate that, and God bless you and direct you as you seek His face. You know what Todd was saying, and we learned this from the story of Esther, you know, it turns out that her whole life was in preparation for that one challenge. God had spent His whole life giving her a gift of physical beauty, giving her an uncle who built in her qualities of character and faith and integrity, to prepare her for that one great challenge. And so then the moment of decision came. Was she going to take the risk? If I perish, I perish. Take the risk in order to be used by God and to do the thing that God had called her to do. And so, you know, Todd's point, I think, is well taken. You know, that God prepares us for these moments, and perhaps all of life has been a preparation for this particular challenge. And they're not challenges that we can see coming. That's why we got to walk by faith with God every single solitary day, because we do not know when that moment of opportunity and that moment of challenge is going to come. This took Esther completely off guard, completely by surprise. Took Mordecai completely by surprise. Nobody saw this thing coming, but God saw it coming. And God knew the heart of Esther. God knew the heart and character of Mordecai and says, look, I'm going to see that these people are put in these places for this time because they will be the people who will carry out my will. So he prepared Esther for that moment long before she had any idea what God was doing with her life. So if there are things that have happened in the contours of your life that you don't understand, trust me, God has a reason for that. Maybe he hasn't revealed it to you yet, but in some way, the twists and the turns that he's taken you through in your life is preparing you for something that is yet to come. You don't even know what that is. God does, but you don't, but he is preparing you for that. And so that's why we need to keep our eyes fixed on him every single day. All right, let's go to Paul in Dallas, Texas. Paul, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Yes, I wanted to talk about the Obamacare website problems.
Yes, sir.
It points out two really ominous things for the future. One is these websites right now are nothing more than an order entry system. You put in your name, age, sex, your family, income, blah, blah, blah. Here's the plans that are available to you, order one. Well, they can't even get that right. So it begs the question, what kind of systems is Obamacare going to have for things like administering this blizzard of diagnosis codes like you've read out before, like, 8 different kinds of snake bites?
Yeah.
And things like that. And so those things are going to have far more complex business rules and logic conditions to them. If they can't get an order entry system right, what are those other systems going to be like? And that's just the basis for my real point. Obamacare has mandated that all insurance companies can only spend a fixed percentage of the total of the payouts on administrative costs. What are administrative costs? They're having to use these failed, complex government systems. So in my opinion, this is a real ability to destroy the insurance companies because the government has a monopoly on generating as much confusion, failure, and complexity as they want, while the insurance companies are handcuffed to use these poor systems and set up for failure.
Well, and Paul, and you sound like you know a little bit about both internet technology and a little bit about the health insurance industry.
Not really. I know more about IT technology and architecture, more specifically data architecture and so on. But I've been following this stuff ever since they put the doctor needs to be a frequent user of the diagnosis codes.
Yeah.
In the so-called stimulus plan, which clearly outlined, the government's intent that we want total control over everything when it comes to the delivery.
And your point about the economics of health insurance industries and companies is right on point. A lot of people have not been talking about this, and I'm glad you reminded us of this. Prior to Obamacare, insurance companies paid out about 65% of their total receipts in service to customers. That was the kind of payout. The Obama administration says you've got to pay out 80%. And if you don't pay out 80% in your total revenues, we are going to punish you. We are going to penalize you. Well, there is a reason why that 65% figure was industry standard. You can't provide good service and good product for people at a higher payout rate. It takes 35% of revenues to run a health insurance company. You've got buildings you have to keep open, lights you have to pay, heat you have to pay, computers you have to buy. You've got phone systems you've got to buy. You have personnel that you have to pay, that you have to train, that you have to deploy. That takes money to do it. It takes 35% of revenues to operate a health insurance company. And Obama just arbitrarily says, no, we're going to make you do it on 20% of revenues. That is a recipe for catastrophe. These health insurance companies are not going to be able to provide quality products and quality service with these kind of arbitrary mandates. I mean, if there was a way that you could do it for less, this is why the marketplace is what you look to. If there was a way that health insurance companies could provide the same quality and the same service, say for 30%, then they would be doing it. And they would be taking money away from their competitors because they could offer the product at a lower price. I mean, there's a reason why the industry standard is around 35% because you just can't do it on less than that. If you could, people would be doing it because it would take business away from competitors. All right, great call, Paul. I appreciate that very much. Let's go to Catherine, Wallace, North Carolina. Catherine, what's on your mind?
Hey, don't have much time. I wanted to ask the question.
Yes, ma'am.
Where in the Constitution, Brian, does the president derive the power of executive orders? I'm asking this because I got something disturbing revealed to me today, that the president took the step of claiming martial law power for himself in an executive order he signed on March the 16th, 2012. So I've been reading over while I've been waiting my copy of the Constitution, and the closest thing I can find to anything in there giving the president power of executive order is Article 4, Section 4, which reads, the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government and shall protect each of them, each state, against invasion and on application or okay by the legislature or of the executive when the legislature cannot be convened against domestic violence. Is that where he derives his...
Well, that would be, and here's the point, and I appreciate the call, Catherine. Thank you for that. The reality is that the president's executive orders constitutionally would apply only to the executive branch because he's in charge of the executive branch. He can tell people in the executive branch what to do. He cannot tell us what to do. He has no executive authority outside the executive branch. His job is to execute laws that have been passed by Congress. That's where the power is. Back in 5.